Hello, hello, hello. Here we
Oh,
are for another episode of Empowered Presence. This is going to be so good today, y'all. Oh my gosh. So, we have Miss Wendy Carter, who is an ICF certified coach and leadership development practitioner. And she's going to get real and raw about overcoming some traumatic experiences that really allowed her to make a breakthrough in her career. Okay. Wendy is brings 15 years of Fortune 100 HR experiences to the table. She excels in transforming leaders for measurable performance outcomes. She's the founder of Emerge Development Solutions, offering top quality, okay, top quality coaching to Fortune 500 organizations, specializing in innovation solutions through coaching lens and utilizing assessments for self awareness and actionable self development plans. She has had senior leadership roles at AdventHealth, Walt Disney Company, and Citigroup. Okay. She's legit. She contributes to advancing coaching excellence in her HR practices. In her spare time, she likes to travel, meet new people, and really cherish quality moments with her family. Oh my gosh, Wendy, you are phenomenal. Welcome,
thank
welcome,
you.
welcome.
So are you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So, tell us a little bit about your story and how your overcoming of trauma really played into your career.
Thank you. Well, I want to first bring less heaviness around the word trauma because when we hear it, we become afraid and we create images of what trauma truly is. And then we tend to separate ourselves from people who are traumatized and people who are not. Now, the National Mental Well-Being Council, okay, they have done an assessment, a study to say that 7 out of 10 adults have had a traumatic experience. The National Council of Mental Well-Being. So 7 out of 10 of us have had some type of trauma in our lives. Okay, so that's 7 out of 10 people in a room. And
Mm,
how we define trauma is it's typically an internal negative experience that happens and it shifts the way that we think about ourselves, it thinks about the way we think about other people, the world. So our lens changes based on this event. And that event can be being bullied in school. It could be something like that, or it can be some traumatic event that happened that really changed your life. So I'm going to speak through that lens. And how I'm going to talk about trauma is not through the clinical healing of trauma, but how trauma impacts the way that we think and our belief
mm,
systems. Because what we need to understand is that belief systems are important because it's operative, which means that we act out what we believe. A la Kanye, who feels like he is like emperor of the world, a clear example. But the what we believe is what we act out. So we need to be very careful of what we believe. And as I think about my own journey, I had really faulty belief systems about who I was and what I was capable of. I'll just give you some background about my journey. I was born in Jamaica, West Indies, and I came here with my family at a very young age. I think I was 5, and I was very different in class. I remember, going into kindergarten, and I had an accent, and I was right away bullied. So it was like, why do you talk like that? So from a very young age, I just felt different, like something was wrong with me. And on top of that, throughout my life, and as you can see right now, I've been very animated. So expressive, loud sometimes, goofy, accepted by some and not accepted by others. And there were labels put on me that I was too much. I remember, early in my career sitting down with my leader, him telling me, "You're really intense," which I thought, man, is that a bad thing? And so started to really silence myself because my belief was I'm
mm,
too much. I need to be quiet, right? And also, when you're growing up in a household, you have brothers and sisters, and I had wonderful brothers and sisters. Some of us were excelled at being great in school. Some of us excelled at having great personalities. I didn't do very well in school all the time because I just, I had siblings that were really, really smart, and that was their label. It wasn't my label, so I just didn't really feel I was smart, so I had to try hard, right? So as you can see, there's like a threading of things that were traumatic to me that created beliefs in me that really didn't have me operating at an optimal level. So I went into the career space with these beliefs because the truth is, when you go into your career, you're not going into your career with just your work experience and your degrees. You're going in with all the things that have happened to you that have created beliefs about yourself, and they will impact the way you operate in this space. So for me, I felt very comfortable being under the radar because listen, I'm too much, right? So I don't want to be too loud here. I'll be quiet. My first job at a very large insurance company, we're at the boardroom table. Every meeting, you're supposed to contribute. No, but my belief is I'm gonna be quiet. Let me go under the radar. I'm too much. I'm not saying a word at the table, which means I'm not giving any contributions. I'm not adding any value. So promotion was not on my trajectory. And I'm thinking, I'm working really hard. Why is no one noticing me? Because you don't talk. You don't get it out. And also because I thought I wasn't very smart, I didn't think I had much to add as far as value anyway. So these were my beliefs in my career, and it impacted the way that I showed up and the way that I connected with people. So I was very stagnant for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until I went into a space where I was being encouraged that I was really good at what I did, and I was being forced to facilitate. I did a post maybe 2-3 weeks ago about, people encouraging me to facilitate and be in front of audiences because they thought I was good and I didn't think I was, that my beliefs started to change a little bit and I started to show up a little differently. And then with that change and me being more forward and visible, I got promoted, and people started to see me better. So when I went into coaching with my ICF coaching certification with IPEC, which is an awesome coaching institute, really talked about a lot more of those limiting beliefs that really haunt us. And then I started to meet with clients and they all had the same issues, Melanie. VPs saying to me, I'm not propelling because here's the outcome. The truth about outcomes in your career is that they typically happen in patterns. So you're not getting a promotion. You recognize that you're not being as visible. What's the belief that you have about yourself and being visible? And then I found similarities. When I was younger, my mom said, I shouldn't be seen and not heard. That belief follows you into your adulthood because the brain, and we know this from neuroscience, doesn't understand time, right? It doesn't understand time. So it sits with you until you disrupt it. So if we are not clear about what the thinking is, we will live in those patterns forever. When we're clear that, hey, I was 7 years old when I said I shouldn't be seen and not heard. Now I'm 35 and I'm a BP. They want to see and hear me. You can show up differently because the good news is the brain can be rewired. And through the rewiring of my brain, I have now stepped out and I have my own business and things are a lot better. So the same is possible for everyone listening out there as well.
Oh my God. What a powerful story. I got goosebumps right now, just so you know, because I resonate so much with pretty much everything you said. It's like you're in my brain.
Oh, good.
So here's the thing. Let's go all the way back.
Okay.
I was born in Barbados. Island girl over here.
Island girl.
Came over to the States for 3rd grade. Immediately bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in Detroit. So I had to act tough.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw like, okay, this is the vibe. All right, cool. I'm going to just act tough. And then I put up this exterior, like, you're not going to bully me. I'm not going to take your ish. Right. And so that really formed a lot of my personality because I just had to tough it out day to day. And so love that part. Like I can relate, not that I love it, but I can relate to that part of your story. The other thing is, what you were saying towards the latter part of where you were speaking about silencing yourself and really your beliefs around being visible. That is really a big part of the work that I do with my clients, right? So the name of my podcast is Empowered Presence. That's the same name as my course and my program, my coaching program. Because what I want for us is to be able to be and just rest in our power.
Yeah.
So when we walk into the room, everybody already can see what we exude is that confidence and that knowing of who we are. And I think all of these things that we take in and we kind of internalize and we carry, that's not who we are. It is what other external forces has shaped us to be. And honestly, I feel like a lot of us, Black women, but a lot of us, regular people, we are walking around with identity issues.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Such a good I love your sharing, by the way. I can relate to. I grew up in New York. So also, you have to be tough to have a mouth.
Yeah, we can't be, yeah.
So to that point, what's interesting about that comment, I'm going to get to the other presence comment. Our brain is such a helpful mechanism, Melanie, because its goal is to help us to survive. And so these beliefs, when we develop them as children, because we can't process fully as children, our brain isn't fully developed. So its whole goal is for us to survive. So for you in that space of, I'm from another country, they're bullying me. In order for me to survive right now, I have to be tough. I have to put up a wall. And it served you back then. But you're Melanie, mom, wife, career woman, you no longer need that shell. But you don't always instantly know that. So sometimes habitually you still show up as that because the brain's like survive.
Right.
There's no time, right? So I love your self-awareness around where it came from, because guess what? With that awareness, you get to say, all right, that was then, this is now. How is it serving me? Now, Melanie, if it's still serving you, do you, boo? Keep on doing the tough thing. But if you're really honest with yourself and you unpack ways that it's not serving you, you have the opportunity to choose a new response, a new belief. You no longer have to fight off those bullies anymore. Right now, it's about building a business and making impact. What does that Melanie look like?
Right.
How does she now thrive versus survive? So I love that self-awareness, and I'm really proud of you that you know where it came from, what it looks like now. I also agree with you about identity crisis. Can you imagine how many of us are walking around quiet, shoulders down, maybe even reactive, because we are operating off of an old identity that was keeping us alive then that we don't need now?
Yes.
And so we are missing out on opportunities. We are coming across misrepresented. Our skills and our abilities are not being provided to the organization. So it can kill a career. And a lot of people are questioning themselves, well, why am I not getting promoted? Why? There may be some patterns in behavior that you are showing up in that people are just not pleased with. Get curious about that. What does that look like? Where did it come from? And so those are the conversations that we need to have with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also it goes back to not being afraid to be who you are. Right. So that lack of visibility, kind of like what you were explaining about, I'm just gonna sit in this meeting, child, I'm just gonna be quiet. That was me too in corporate. I was just like, I don't sound like them. I don't even know how to sound like them. So I'ma just chill in the back, even though I got ideas for days. And it was just a fear of being visible.
Yeah.
It was a fear of showing up because of all of these traumas, quote unquote, that we have been through. It's a widespread issue, Wendy.
It's huge. And I love that if we want to get very specific, because I like that you kind of zeroed in, because I agree, all of us, 7 out of 10 people, right, have experienced some trauma, but especially people of color, we have a different conditioning, especially as it relates to coming into as the other.
Yes.
Coming into as the other, right? Because there's a lot of things that are that we have in our brain about what that looks like. I mean, even if you look on media and the movies that we watch about what that looks like to be the other, it was life-threatening many years ago. And now we have to take care of our families in a space of not feeling safe in the other. So there's a conditioning and there's a trauma around that I can't be too visible. I'm coaching a gentleman right now who is a leader in an education space. This man is highly degreed, highly educated, and so smart. And when you ask him about the contributions that he's giving at work, he is saying to me, Wendy, I am staying under the radar because I got to take care of my family and I'm not about to be fired. He attaches showing up and being visible to getting fired. Ooh. The fear is following him. He has to take care of his family. So there is a natural threat with people of color coming into the workplace, that trauma about, let me stay under the radar. I don't want them to fire me. I got to keep safe, that they cannot even show up in their authentic selves. And that is so sad.
It is very sad. And it is there. We are robbing the world of our gifts.
Absolutely.
That's what it boils down to, in my opinion. Right. Yeah. Because when we do that, we're not focused on the job for real. We're focused on hiding. We're focused on making sure we're not ruffling too many feathers. We're focused on keeping up the facade. Like, this is who we are at work, so let's just keep in line. And we can't really truly be creative. We can't foster innovation. We can't throw ideas out because we're so fearful.
So afraid. Absolutely. And I want to add to that point you just said too. Your gift, I believe, is inherently, your gifts and your talents are not for you. They are given to you because you are here to make an impact on the world and support other people in their gifts, right? We pay it forward. And so if I think about me and you, right, like for instance, for me, if I were to keep quiet as I was back then, how would I facilitate workshops? I remember being in the hospital system and me being in front of the room facilitating, and it wasn't as diverse at the time. And people would say, "Oh my God, I loved seeing you up there, Black woman up there facilitating." I have given someone license to show up. They had not seen someone facilitate that looked like me. What if I stayed quiet in the back of the room? Those people wouldn't see me. Those people can't see you as a leader in your space because you're staying quiet because you're afraid. Right?
And
if
it's
you
just
put up that wall, Melanie, who would be able to hear your voice in this podcast?
exactly. And then that hiding perpetuates itself. And so we all continue to hide because no one is saying, hey, y'all, it's safe to come out. Right? There's no guinea pig for us to look at and say, oh, she did it. Let me see how did she survive? Did she make it? Right? We're just waiting for someone else to say, hey, y'all, it's okay.
You have permission. But to that point, if we would start being aware of the things that are making us small and want to shrink, if we can just tap into that and get curious about where that is coming from, then we can make a new decision. The brain is so maladaptive. We can change it. We can rewire it. The two questions I ask my clients to ask themselves, because the beliefs are, I'm not good enough, or they're smarter than me, or if I say something, I'm going to get fired because I'm the only person like me. I tell them to ask. I want you to ask yourself two questions. Here are the two questions I tell them to ask themselves. Because the brain likes evidence. That's how you could trick the brain. The brain needs evidence. And in those false beliefs, it finds these little false evidence things that make you believe it. But let's find some real evidence. So I say, the first question is, you say that if you say something, you're going to get fired. How true is that? And they say, well, it might be true because I don't know. I've seen it. Okay, second question. This is the one that knocks it out. What evidence do you have to support that? I don't have any evidence. Then it's not fact. Right? So now that we know it's not fact, what's a belief that is true? Well, I went to school and I have my master's in this and I've taught classes in this and I've gotten feedback on this. That sounds pretty true to me. So what's the new belief? And I'm not saying it's an instantaneous thing, Melanie. We have to practice new beliefs because you've been living in that old belief for years, but live in it, practice it, repeat it to yourself. Look for evidence of it, and that can be your new experience, and then you will show up more powerfully in the workplace.
I love that. Very similar to something I do too with my clients. I say, what's the new truth?
Love it.
Right? The old belief, new truth. And we have to recognize where this stuff is coming from. It's literally killing us.
It's killing us. We are losing out on our potential opportunities. We are not providing access to other people who need to see us. Some of us are, and this, hey, listen, we're talking about the little meek and mild things. Some of us are acting out badly because we're still in survival mode. So you going to work trying to survive and protect like you're in a war, arguing with people, being defensive, because maybe back in the day you lived in a chaotic household, or you lived in you went to a school where you were highly bullied and you had to survive, and you became very like protective, and now you're like, and people are scared to work with you. Okay, let's be real. People are always saying, I remember, because I could be a little aggressive, Melanie. Let's keep it real, okay?
Same.
Okay? I'm from New York. And so when I moved to Florida, I had to adapt a few things, okay? And I had a very good friend at work. He was my work best friend. His name was Shelby. And I used to make him give me feedback. And I realized that sometimes I could come off very forceful. But what I've learned from another trusted advisor is that power that we have can be used for good and for evil. The good, there's nothing wrong with us being assertive. It helps us to get the things that we want. It's highly influential. We can have impact, right? So we can use that there. But when it's hurtful and forceful, it's not good. So shield your power for good. Move it towards where it's helpful, but that can only happen with self-awareness. Melanie, are you there? Melanie? Melanie, are you there? Looks like we lost Melanie. I'm not sure where Melanie went. Am I still on? Okay. So while we may wait for Melanie, I just want to also talk about the way that this disturbed thinking can show up in your everyday life so that you can identify if you are also in this space, okay? I just want to give you some history around where some of these thinking traps or belief systems came from. Now, in 1976, there was a psychologist named Beck, and he came up with this idea of cognitive distortions, which means that our mind will go to thinking about things that are negative and not true, and we will manifest them in our reality. In the 1980s, David Burns created a whole list of some cognitive distortions that we can identify in our actual thinking, okay? And they're called thinking traps. So want to give you an example of some of them, and you tell me if any of these sound familiar to you, okay? Number one, catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is all about you are expecting the worst case scenario. It might be, oh my gosh, if I give this presentation, I'm going to fail. I'm going to do horrible, right? So that is maybe in your past experience, you've had many negative outcomes. You might be someone who's a catastrophizer. So you immediately start to think that everything is going to go wrong, okay? So if you are a catastrophizer, there are ways that we can work around that too. I want to go down the list. You might also be a mind reader. Maybe when you were younger, there were different temperaments in the house and you had to be mindful of the way people were feeling so that you could go in, you could go into it being prepared for the behaviors that they had. So now you go into the workplace and you mind read people. If someone's quiet, you are thinking, oh, they might be mad at me, right? They're going to fire me. So that might be you catastrophizing. Another one might be overestimating, right? So there's a whole long list of thinking traps that you can find online that will help you to identify what thinking trap you tend to live in. I know for me, I was a catastrophizer. So I would have lots of anxiety as I would prepare to do anything great. Oh, it's going to go wrong. It's going to go horrible, right? So I recognize that was happening from, past experiences where in my life, everything was turbulent. So I just expected if I could say things would go wrong, it would keep me safe. How that would manifest in my work life, it would give me tons of anxiety before I had to go and do a presentation, right? So get to the presentation, I'm extremely nervous because I was catastrophizing the whole time. And typically it turned out really well. So I could have saved that time preparing for my presentation versus catastrophizing, right? So now the new belief is, right now that I've replaced that old belief, so I realized it was really creating chaos in my life. The new belief is, well, if I prepare, everything is going to go well. If I prepare, I know for a fact things are going to go well. There's also a thinking trap called all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking. If it's not this, then it has to be that. That can get us in trouble too, right? So it's important that you identify what your thinking trap is, and you can do that by looking at the outcomes, the patterns. So I recognized for me at one point in my career that I was not moving up. I stayed at one level for a very long time in my career. And so I recognized that, what are the patterns that are happening here? I realized that I was not being vocal, that I was not contributing, that I was not showing up, that I wouldn't raise my hand. So how would people know about the good work that I did, right? Me catastrophizing that it would go wrong if I raised my hand prevented me from being completely visible. And so that was one that was holding me back in my career. Now, I want all of you that are online to think about your experience in your career. What are some of the outcomes that you're experiencing? Are you not being promoted? Do people not want to work with you because of one thing or another? Are you not being asked to be called on projects? What is the outcome in your career that you recognize as a pattern and is making you frustrated? Now, the usual next step for us in that situation is to say, they don't want to work with me. Nobody likes me. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do, something completely new. I want you to turn the inquiry and the fingers back on you. And I want you to ask yourself, what are some of the things that I am doing that are contributing for me to show up in this space? What are some of the things that are preventing me from showing up in this space? It might be self-inquiry, and it might also be you getting feedback from a trusted person. Now, when I worked at the hospital, I had my friend in the office that would give me feedback. Who in the office can give you feedback about how you're showing up? When one of my friends told me in a meeting that I was being overly aggressive and critical, I was like, me? I was? That was great information, because then I got to sit back and think about, what was I thinking through before I got into that meeting? What was on my mind? What was I thinking? And as I got really honest with myself as I got really honest with myself about my behavior, I realized that I was feeling very threatened and feeling very intimidated, because I was a leader of this task force, and I was, a Black woman, and I felt like I had to protect myself, right? That thought came to me that I had to protect myself. And that created a behavior in me that was not helpful. And I know where that comes from. I told you, when I was younger, I was bullied, so I had to have this armor up. But I'm no longer 8 years old on the playground. I am now an adult who is a professional, who has the experience and the confidence to serve this team, and I don't have to act like a warrior. Okay, so that self-inquiry and also getting feedback from a trusted advisor helped me to change the narrative in myself and show up more effectively. Here's the good news. Here's the bad news. The bad news is, or it's not even bad news. The truth is, the ways that you've been thinking and the trauma that has happened, that's all really true. And I also want to say this caveat too. Trauma impact has a couple of outcomes. Trauma can absolutely impact the way we believe, think, and act, but it can also become a disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a disorder, and that is typically when trauma disrupts your daily functioning. When it is at that level, I highly recommend that you speak to a clinician, a therapist that can help you to unravel and treat that disorder. Disorders are to be treated by clinicians. Now, when you are in the space of having beliefs that are not helpful for you and holding you back, it is absolutely okay for you to speak to a trusted coach who can help you get very clear on what are some of the things that I'm thinking, how did I get here? And that how did I get here is important, because there are things that we are thinking now that are not rooted in today. Okay, those beliefs about I'm not good enough, I might not be able to do it, let me be quiet, did not start last year. They may have started 20 years ago. And we have to get curious about where it started from, because we have to understand how the belief was created so that we could unravel it. So it might be in a coaching session, me asking a client, well, talk to me about the first time you noticed yourself hiding or shrinking, right? Where are my people pleasers out there? Because I'm talking to you too, right? The people that have to raise their hand every 10 minutes and burn themselves out because they want people to like them. That happens at work, right? And it's not a very prosperous way to show up. Here she is.
What? You should.
Oh, Melanie, you're breaking up again. Melanie, I think you're gone again. All right, I'm going to finish up this last thought until you come back.
Go ahead.
Are you back? Oh, there you are. I was just talking about, Melanie, we forgot about our people pleasers, right? Because a lot of us can be people pleasers in the workplace too. And I'm talking about all those beliefs that harm us at work: people pleasing, over apologizing, being disruptive, all the things, and being very curious about when is the first time that you noticed that. Remember, I asked the client about people pleasing. I said, when is the first time you noticed that? And she said, I remember I was in a house of like 8 kids, okay, and one mother. And the only way I would get my mom's attention is by helping her with all the things in the house. So I learned at that time, in order to survive and feel good, I had to overextend myself. Now she is a highly accomplished VP and is still doing the same thing and complaining about being burnt out, right? So when we recognize where it started and how it helped to survive, we were able to have her like actualize that you're no longer there. What's the new belief? And now she's, able to operate functionally. So that was a thought. But welcome back, Melanie.
My internet just said whoop whoop whoop. We're done. So yeah. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of different things that happen as a result of trauma and that we carry into the workplace. Another one that, I'm thinking of is being I just lost my thought. But yeah, we bring a lot to the workplace, and it really doesn't serve us, right? It really doesn't serve us very well, especially when we are being looked at in a certain way and we're just operating in the way we know how to operate. You know what I mean? It's just, we have to be aware. That awareness is the first step. And I think, when I do, because I say I do personal branding, which I do, right? But when we get into the weeds and it's about, okay, building your brand at work, online, offline, all of it. What does that look like? Why do you want to build a brand? Okay, cool. Who are you? Who are you? And that's how I started getting into this work, because I thought I was just gonna be helping people tell some stories, child, and you know what I mean, right. Spread a message. But it ended up being this deep, deep work of us not knowing how to show up as who we are.
That is so big. You just said 2 things that gave me goosebumps. Ooh. You said, because I love talking about leadership brand, that's one of my favorite conversations. You said we have to be self-aware about the way we habitually show up. Some of us are walking around with dark glasses on. We have no idea of how people see us in the world. And our response, I don't care what they think about me. If you are in corporate America, honey, your leadership brand is everything. And it is all about what people think about you, because you know why? You're not in the room when they're having those conversations and making the decisions about your career. I used to be in those rooms and I heard all the tea. Okay. So your leadership brand and how you show up consistently has huge power and influence over how people view you, which impacts what they think about you, which impacts the decisions about you in those meetings that you are not there. And it is all about how you habitually show up. And I love the word authenticity, because I think a lot of times, Melanie, people think, well, if I show up in this way, that is not authentic to me, but possibly looks good, people will like me better. Fail, they know you're wearing a facade. At the end of the day, we are human beings more than we're professionals, because you like people that you at work, you have favor over people that you like. Yeah. Like you buy from people who you like.
Right.
You just feel the same way. I hear the conversations at the corporate table. I used to hear them. People know when you're being authentic. Why not focus on refining your authenticity versus trying to be somebody else? Because that's not the answer either.
And you know what? I talk about authenticity a lot. And I think some people feel like authenticity means I have to tell everybody all of my business all the time. And I have to share everything that's on my mind all the time. That's not what I mean when we talk about authenticity. When I think about authenticity, all I'm saying is your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs, your values are all in alignment. So that's all it means.
That's huge.
That's all it means. Right? So I wasn't being authentic back in the day when I was at corporate, laughing at the dry jokes. I didn't think it was funny. But I laughed because I felt like that's kind of what I had to do.
They saw that fake smile on your face. They knew you weren't.
And they could probably tell that I wasn't, because I'm not great at being, I'm not good at it.
Right.
It's very hard for me to trick people to think I'm this person.
Mm-mm.
But it's not about all of that other stuff. It's
Mhm.
literally just about being in alignment, making sure
Yes.
you feel good and comfortable with the decisions you make, with the actions, the things you say, your beliefs, all of that is on one accord. That's all it means.
It absolutely does. And guess what, Melanie? When you show up in your authenticity, when you said when you're in alignment with your thoughts, and even your core values are huge to your authenticity too, because core
Mhm.
values are the things that are in alignment with who you are, your confidence increases. When you're being
1,000%.
yourself, like when I'm goofy and I'm Wendy and I feel so, this is who I am.
Yeah.
But when I had to be like, I felt so insecure because I wasn't being true to myself. I am big personality, loud, and I guess what? I'm an introvert that likes to be alone sometimes too, and I don't want to talk to anybody. That's the truth of who I am.
Yeah.
And to that point about authenticity does not mean telling all your business. Brene Brown, who's my best friend in my head, I love her. There's a difference between vulnerability and full disclosure.
Mm.
So vulnerability means, Dad, I'm really nervous about this presentation, or it's my first time here, so I don't really know everything. Full disclosure is, girl, last night me and my husband had an argument. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about being real. Like, wow, this is my first time here. I don't really know everything, but I want to get to know everybody. Or yesterday, that story really made me upset. Yes, that is vulnerability. Not telling all your business. Okay, there's a difference. So let's be clear about
Big
distinction.
difference. And
Yeah.
when I talk a lot about when it comes to building our brands, talk a lot about telling your story.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a lot of, well, I don't want to put all my business out there. I don't want to put all, and it's like, so you want to act like everything is perfect. You want to act like you don't have no issues. You haven't struggled to get where you at. That's what we want to portray, because that's not the truth. That's not authentic. And it's okay to share a little struggle,
Absolutely. None of
because we all share in the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
No one's really judging you. They're like, yes, oh my gosh, me too. So like, let's kind of get over that, because that's not really what it's about. It's not about putting yourself out there and just sharing all your demons to the world so they can judge you and throw rocks. It's really just about showing, hey y'all, I'm human just like you guys. We're all in this together. That's
That's
really
our
what it's all
connective
about.
tissue. That's the connective tissue. We're human beings that we all been through some stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, we have to share all the stuff. Like I
No,
remember Tabitha Brown said, some of it just ain't your business. She's talking about her and her husband's struggles.
it's
Some of
not.
it just isn't your business. Like I have stuff that I'm never going to tell some of y'all. That's okay. But there are things that I know that are useful and helpful that make up the fiber of who I am. And that is being authentic. It's so funny. We were just talking, Melanie, before we came on about the post I did on January 1st, where I talked about me not showing up as my authentic self in facilitation. And I struggle with that because, we're conditioned even with our upbringing for some people. That's a trauma. Secrets. Be quiet. Show everybody. I was going to tell everybody. So we grew up very guarded. We don't know. I don't want people in my business, right? But there is healing in sharing the things that have helped you to get to where you are. Healing in that. You see me talking and coaching. I was very insecure and very shy and wanted to hide and didn't feel good about myself for a very long time. And I'm thankful that I feel a lot better. Do I feel great all the time? No.
Right.
I still have insecure moments, but there's been a journey, and I want you to come along with me on that. That's why I want to share it.
Yeah. And when you're authentic, you know what else happens? People trust you.
Yes.
They trust that what they see is what they get.
Yes.
That trust goes a long way.
Huge.
Trust goes a long way. In corporate, in life, in friendships, in relationships, everywhere, trust goes a long way.
So big, so big. It's funny. I have leaders sometimes, and because I think trust and authenticity and vulnerability are kind of like cousins. They work together very well, because when you're authentic, it's natural that you're going to be vulnerable about a few things, right?
Right.
Leaders are very uncomfortable with the V word. They don't want to vulnerable. They don't think I look
know why? Because they associate that V word with the W word. Weakness. That I don't know how that came out into the ether, but it's not the same.
It's a lie. It's a lie.
It's not.
The people who are vulnerable and tell us their struggles, that takes courage. We are enamored by those people. I'm like, really, you? Yes, me. I think about, when Oprah tells us those gritty things about her past and how she was raped and how she had been. Sarah Jakes Roberts, who's one of my favorite speakers too, when she talks about having a baby at 14, I'm like, you came from this family, and she's so open with that story. That has given her so much credibility on that platform that she has created a brand on it, because people want to hear your truth. People want to know that you're real. People want to know that when they look at you, they don't feel separate and apart from you.
Correct. I was just going to say that they feel that connection. They feel you are now relatable. Even though you have all this, fame and fortune and celebrity status, you're still relatable. Because at the end of the day, you went through hardships and experiences just like I did.
Yes, exactly.
And that like you said, that's the connective tissue for us humans. So
it's connected not only in personal relationships, Melanie, but at work as well. Because a lot of us have been hurt really bad by people, and we come into work with these armors on. And especially as leaders, we come with these armors on, and we don't share out that authentic selves to our teams and the people we work with. I will tell you my biggest leadership fail. Okay, people are probably watching already know about it. But I was leading a team here, and it was one of my first leadership jobs, and I had on an armor. I was not showing who I truly was. Sometimes I would, but then would fall back in the armor. And people, my team was like, who the hell are you? They didn't trust me. And I failed in that role. By the glory and the grace of God, I was given another chance with a new team. And I don't know if my Gus or Carla, my favorite direct reports in the world, on this call, but what a great team I had. And we had trust and we had camaraderie. And those girls are both doing well in their own rights. But I had another chance to then be myself, to be okay, being awkward or being funny or being firm at the same time. And so the truth is this too, because I don't want people to feel like, oh God, I done did all this stuff. The truth is maybe your trauma had you in some beliefs that had you acting out in ways that you're not proud of. So have I, and so has Melanie.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have made some really bad decisions and showed up in ways that we're not proud of. But here is the grace. Oh, here's the grace and the redemption. You have some new information and you woke up this morning and you can make a new decision, and your brain is malleable, which means it can change. And so if you get curious about what are the patterns that are showing up for me at work that I'm not happy with, get curious and ask for feedback and do some self-inquiry. You can get some answers and you can make a new decision, a new belief, which will then change your behavior and give you a new path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Woo. Well, I think on that note, we can wrap up, Miss Wendy.
Awesome. Oh, Mom, this has been so much fun. I feel you and I could talk forever. That's why I can't just we'll have more talk time. But I also want to share, I'm very serious about this work in belief systems and trauma and all the things. And there are going to be so many other things that are manifest as a result of this discussion. We're going to build on it. The first thing I want to offer is I want to offer five 1-hour complimentary coaching sessions with me. So the first 5 people, and Belly's going to share the link. You can have a 1-hour coaching session with me. Let's dig deeper into this conversation, right? Let's get clear about it. Book a session with me, free 1-hour coaching session. Let's continue the conversation with me and you one-on-one by ourselves. And let's unpack some of these belief systems. That's number 1. So first 5 1-hour coaching session with me. Jump on it. Number 2, my very dear friend, Deloria Nelson, and we are planning a workshop for women to come together, women of color to come together, because we're tired and we have our own trauma and we have our own things that we need to unpack. With in light of what happened to the woman at Lincoln University who took her life based on workplace bullying, and Dr. Gay at Harvard who had to resign. We need to get together and have a conversation. Okay, so we are going to be doing a great workshop for a few hours here in the Central Florida area. If you're local, we'll be sharing that information. So look on my LinkedIn. We'll be sharing that information coming up in March, probably early March. So just stay tuned. We want to invite you to that. It's going to be wonderful. And some more events coming up in the future. I'm going to be having an event for a conversation with men and women to discuss our relational trauma, because that's huge too. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up in the spring. So lots of things are going to launch from this conversation. And I thank you, Melanie, for allowing me to have a platform to share it because it's been on my heart and I appreciate you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just keep on, keep showing up, keep telling us your story, keep being who you are because you're beautiful, you have a beautiful soul. And I appreciate you for spending the time with me today. I
My
really
pleasure.
do. Because the people need to know. People need to hear your words.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. I see the comments in the chat. Thank you for being here. And we
Yeah,
appreciate your support as well.
absolutely. Always, always, always. Well, all right, guys. Until next time, happy self marketing.